Hi friends, we're weaving and talking today. That's how we're getting it done. Someone mentioned recently that they would like to see more of what I'm doing when I do this kind of video. And I get that, I understand, but I can't always do that because some of the projects that I work on, I'm not actually allowed to show ahead of time, and that is the case with this project. So I'm sorry you won't be able to see me working on it. I was talking with my husband last night as we lay in bed, you know, that beautiful, peaceful time when everything is quiet and the work of the day is done and you're just looking forward to hopefully what's going to be a really good sleep and replenishment. And anyway, I said to him that I didn't think I wanted to do any more magazine projects. And he said something to me that really made me think. He said, 10 years ago, that would have been your dream come true for someone to ask you to do a magazine project. And my immediate answer was, yes, I know, it would have been, but that was before I had a business to run and an income to provide for my family. But I've thought about it even more since then, because it's kind of a big thing. And it's good to think about these things and to realize how you've changed, but also to think about why and assess like whether it's a good thing that you've changed in the ways that you have. So by further thought, my main thoughts are that things are not always as they seem. I've got another example of this. When I was in my mid-20s, I worked as a vocalist, and we lived in Melbourne, and I worked in Melbourne at night time, mostly at night time, doing all kinds of gigs, from pubs to parties to wedding receptions, anything that you can imagine needing a singer for. That's the kind of stuff I was doing. And I worked with a guitarist, so most of the time it was just the two of us, but then a bunch of equipment as well. So when people would ask me what I do for a living, and I said, well, I'm a singer, people would be like really taken aback, and they'd be like, that's amazing. And they'd want to know all about it, all the details. Like, it was kind of an exciting idea to them. But me, after having done it for a while, I didn't feel excited at all, because what seemed from the outside like a glamorous job was not actually glamorous in the least. It was super late nights, standing for hours, singing until my voice was hoarse, standing on high heels so my back would be killing me, dragging musical equipment around, amplifiers and stands and microphones and all manner of equipment that we needed to use, often playing to really intoxicated audiences, and maybe the worst of all, singing music that I really detested, pop music, because that was what everyone wanted to hear, of course. And so what seemed like an amazing opportunity to be doing, and I'm still glad that I did it, because otherwise I might have gotten to this age and thought, oh, I should have done that, you know, I should have tried harder to do that sort of work, because that was my dream, really. So I don't have any regrets, but after doing it, I knew a lot more than before I was doing it. And so I use that example because it relates very closely to the magazine project work. So when you take on a project for a magazine, there are the back and forth emails to the magazine editor to figure out exactly what you're going to be doing. Sometimes there are design briefs that you have to submit with possibly drawings, colours, photos, ideas, etc., depending on whether you've worked with the magazine before or whatever. There's often a specific design to follow or a colour palette to follow that you need to fit into. There are then the particulars of the actual project or the theme that they want. Then there's all of the regular planning and everything that goes into a project that I would be designing. And then there's the weaving, the photographing of the process, the documenting of the process, because you have to document it very well. It's going to go into a magazine. It's going to be for people to follow. It's got to be correct. So you've got to be really particular about that part of it. And then for me, living in little old Australia on the other side of the world from most weaving magazines, I then have to package up the finished product and send it over so that they can do their end photography. And then I have to send the digital files for all the instructions, any other information that I need to go with it. Now, all of that is quite a bit of work. It does depend on the project, but this can take from weeks to a month to put together. And in the meantime, I'm still running my business. I'm still doing all my regular business hours. At the end of it all, the pay is not great. So if I made my own design and put it in my own shop, as I do fairly often, you probably have seen my designs available online as digital downloads, then when I am putting in all of that work, I know that I'm fairly certain that I'm going to be very fairly compensated for that, because usually a lot of people buy my patterns. Thank you all. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But with something like a magazine, you get a set fee and then you get no more. Now, of course, you do get the exposure in the magazine, and that is kind of like free advertising. So that is another reason to do it. But it's not what you think it might be. It's a longer process. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And yeah, if I didn't have any other responsibilities or anything else to do, then yeah, it probably would be fun, because I would just have that time and I could take my time and I wouldn't be worrying so much about lost income in other places while I'm working on a magazine project. Okay, so I was talking about change and how it's good to understand when you've changed and why you've changed and all of that. And just to have a little think about it, not to be overly analytical, but just to contemplate these kind of things. Because sometimes when we change, we don't really realize, and we might have changed for the worse. And sometimes that comes back to bite us. And so it's better if we can realize ahead of time so that we can start to work on ourselves in that area and get ourselves back on track. So thinking about myself and changing in this regard, I'm much, much more particular about the kind of projects, collaborations, etc. that I will take on, as far as things that are outside of my regular business routine. So outside of the weaving school, outside of my designs that I do, and all the other stuff that makes up my business, YouTube, my blog, all of it. Now, from the outside looking in, some people might say that if I decide not to take on particular projects, for example, if I decide for the foreseeable future that I won't do any more magazine projects, I will do magazine articles. I'm happy to write articles, but the projects are much more involved. And so if I decide that I'm just not going to do that, at least for the foreseeable future, some people from the outside looking in might say, oh, well, she's not being authentic. She's a sellout because she's not doing these things that don't pay as much. But the reality is, when you are the sole provider for a family, and when you run your own business, and so to some degree it's up to you how much money you make, or how much you have coming in, or whether the business is a success or not. Not just for me, because I know I'm not completely alone in this. I know that God is constantly guiding me in this business, but at the same time, I have to do the work, and I receive His inspirations for what to do next and all of that. But I have to make decisions that are not just based on how things are at face value, like the excitement of doing a magazine project, but the sustainability of doing that kind of work long term. So to break it down even further, by doing that, if I did that kind of work constantly, because I would have the opportunity to do that work constantly, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying the opportunity is out there. The opportunity is out there for you too. You can always apply to be a magazine contributor. So I'm not bragging, not saying that I'm special and that I have all of this work being offered to me. But the things I have to consider, there are two main things, and they're both as equally as important as each other. And the first one, not in order of priority, but just because it's the first one I'm going to say, is my family. So I need to support my family, and I need to do things that are going to best support my family. And so if I'm doing a lot of work that takes me away from my regular work of my business, which brings in most of our income, then something is up. It's not going to pan out, because I'm going to be neglecting my main business. The second thing is I need to look after myself. So I already mentioned that if I take on an extra project, I'm doing so on top of my regular business work. And so if I was doing that all the time, it would just be impossible for me to be running my business effectively, because my business is so multifaceted. I think a lot of people don't realize that. It's not just the weaving school, it's the whole shebang. I'd love to show you like inside exactly what needs to be done on a daily basis. There's just so much. And again, it is my dream to be doing this, to be my own employer, to be running a business on my own terms, to have it revolving around something that I genuinely love doing, and to be helping people. But I've already learned the hard way that I have to put myself first, above the business, above whatever I could do to help other people, and even sometimes above my family, because I can't effectively care for my family if I'm not effectively caring for myself. I know this. God has shown me this in a very definite manner, and I have taken note. So in that regard, when I think about the way that I have changed in the past 10 years, having been through the experiences I've been through, having run this business for 8 years, then I think that all the changes that I've made are really mostly for the positive, because they've been more about caring for myself or recognizing that it's just essential. If I don't care for myself, it's going to be taken out of my hands, and then I won't be able to be an effective person anyway. And also that I've been shown that I haven't had enough balance between work and family life, and I've been working on that, and that has helped a lot. So all the changes that I have made, I think, are for the better. Better for me, better for my family, hopefully better for you, because then when I do show up and work with you, then you're getting all of me and you're getting the authentic me, and I'm clear and I'm healthy and I'm able to help you in the ways that you need to be helped. And so I feel positive about the way that I've changed, and I think that all the changes have actually been absolutely necessary. And I think it's really important too to not judge other people who you think are in these amazing circumstances, and they're actually not, but you just can't see that because all you see is the positive part or the glamorous part or the glitzy part. I think about this often with famous people. You know, I'd never want to be famous. I think it would be one of the greatest trials you have. And I know a lot of people chase after fame, but I'm not sure how many of them actually understand what it's like when they're chasing it, and how many of them afterwards would still want that fame. I mean, that is just so evident in the lifestyles that a lot of people end up with once they are famous, that they're not happy people. And so if you see someone, say you see a famous person snap at a reporter or totally lose it with someone who's just asking them a simple question, and then they're portrayed as really rude and arrogant and horrible, you know, there's usually a lot more to the story than that. Maybe they're under terrible financial pressure. Maybe they're about to lose their record deal, or their next movie deal just cancelled on them, or they're having a really hard family situation, or they've racked up so much debt that they don't know what to do, or they have an addiction, or whatever it is. You know, it's so easy to judge people from the outside when you're not in that same situation. So that's a good thing to remember too, that things are not always as they seem. Thank you for joining me today, friends, and I look forward to talking with you soon.